Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale. So much stuff went down in this episode. One thing, first before I get started, I'm going to bring up the Betty situation. I am an idiot. The fact of the matter is, I didn't even think that Betty would be able to piece it together, but I should have been able to be so obvious that Betty would be able to piece it together because she already knows Archie's alibi about the whole situation of being there on 4th of July weekend and saying saying that he was there and everything. But at the same time, it's Miss Grundy was also there too because her car was seen, and but then it's what's the coincidence that they would be there at the same time? Obviously, you probably just assuming a coincidence, but the fact is that Betty figured it out. She's there's something going on between Archie and Miss Grundy, and it's dude, and what I appreciate is the fact is that what makes Betty kick ass, not only have we seen a darker side to her, we've also seen the more intelligent side of her too, which is she's already a very smart person. We already knew that to begin with, but she's got very good instincts, and she's kind of essentially a reporter in this, kind of the same lines as Jughead, an investigative reporter, and she's digging up some dirt trying to figure out stuff. She's oh, Miss Grundy, tell me all about, where were you before Riverdale? Or, who did you teach before this? It's oh my God, do you have personal classes you have personal sessions with, Archie? It's oh man. And she ends up revealing also she had personal classes with Jason Blum, and then she's interesting. It's isn't he cute or whatever? And Grundy's yeah, but I don't look at my students like that, which immediately I was you're so full of shit. I'm sorry, but I had you. It's you're so full of crap. And at that point Betty knew it, but it was I love the fact is it came out the way it did. Just Betty confronted him as Archie, tell me, there's something between you and Miss Grundy. He's oh crap, did Jughead tell you? She's wait, Jughead knows? I'm the last one to find this out. And you have Veronica coming out and listening. Oh, it's holy crap, Archie had. She's whoa, and she uses the proper word for this, scandalous. It's you and a teacher, and he's just trying to calm both of them down. Betty, it's okay, it's not like that. She didn't take advantage of me or anything. I'm in love with her. He can't really say love because he's I don't know what this is. And it's where do you want this to go? It's I don't know. He's a, it's an understandable situation. It's a very situation that neither one of them really knew what they 100% wanted out of the circumstances. Obviously, you have Archie asking Betty to kind of back down because at first he's worried. He's even talking to Jughead. He's or do you think she's going to say anything? And Jughead's dude, Betty cares about you probably more than anyone out there in the world, especially here in Riverdale. But probably in the entire world, she cares about you more than anyone else. She would never do anything to hurt you. Literally, the only reason why Betty's doing all this investigating, which Veronica brings up, is are you doing this because you still have feelings for Archie or because you care about him? And obviously, I think it's both. Because I can't blame her for still having feelings for him because it's any person would be in that situation. It's especially when you spend so much time with someone and you care about them, those feelings don't just disappear overnight, no matter what happens. Obviously her and Veronica made the pact of being hey, let's just not fight over a boy, let's just be friends. But at the same time, it's once you've developed those feelings for someone, they don't just easily go away. It's they might have subsided a little bit because it's she knows that she can't really be open about it because she knows Archie doesn't feel that way about her. So it's we're supposed to stay friends and everything so things don't get complicated and turn bad, But I still think it is a mix of both. She cares, obviously she has feelings for him, but at the same time she also just legitimately cares for him because that's been her best friend since they were little kids. But but the thing is, Jughead was she would do anything to protect you. She'd never do anything to hurt you. And like I said, going alongside, kind of seeing a little bit of that bad girl side to her, but also kind of just the investigative journalist that she is. She literally breaks into Grundy's car and it's ends up finding out she has a fake ID. Her real name is Jennifer Gibson. She even has a gun. And then it's like, basically, it all comes down to like, Archie, I want you to see the truth. I'm not doing this out of just being jealousy. I'm not doing this to hurt you. It's because I'm concerned about you because you don't know who this lady really is. She hasn't told you anything about herself. And the fact is, like, you don't know, she might have had something to do with Jason's murder. It's just like, I want you to be safe. So it's like, at the very least, ask her these questions. It's like, then you never, why won't you ask her these questions? Because there's a bit of him that is scared to ask her those questions, because if you ask her those questions, he might get an answer that he doesn't want to hear, or at the very least, he's probably afraid that he'll scare her away, that maybe if he starts asking questions like that, then maybe she'll be like, oh, we can't do this anymore, and push her away. But, and it's like, he's a young boy in love, so. But things get extremely, extremely bad when Alice gets involved, because she looks into Betty's room and she sees the gun, and she reads Betty's journal and figures the whole thing out, brings Fred, Archie's dad, along, and they basically confront them. Because basically, because what we ended up finding out about her was that, because at first I was like, oh man, it's about to come out. What lies have you been telling? It's like, no, actually, she's not a terrible person. I mean, I'm sure in some people's eyes it's debatable, because it's like she's having a relationship with a high schooler. Like I said, it's a complicated situation. I mean, like I said, for some people, it's not that complicated. Nevertheless, essentially, the reason why she changed her name is she had a very abusive husband. He'd come home and get abusive after he get super drunk and forget it the next day, and like, oh, it's never going to happen again. But it most likely kept happening. So she divorced him, left, changed her name. And that's why she keeps a gun, for her own protection. And so Betty was like, Betty became a little more understanding, but at the same time, she was like, the fact of the matter is, what do you want to do? Like, is this a relationship good for both you, her future, as well as even yours? Now, getting back to what I was bringing up before, Alice, kind of being the way she is, immediately jumped the gun, and it's like, because it was actually, Archie was doing the responsible thing. He was already ending the relationship. He had gotten her one last gift. It was like a bowstring. He'd even I think he had sold one of his guitars, is what he said, to get it for her. It's kind of like a goodbye gift. It's like, hey, you take this. It's like, the fact is that this is kind of the best option for both of us. You can't, and even Grundy had to admit, yeah, this is kind of the best thing, because it's like, they care for each other, but it's still not the right thing for both of them. And they're just kind of saying goodbye when Betty, Alice, her mom, Alice, and Fred come busting in. And you have Alice being like, oh, we're going to tell everyone, oh, you're a pedophile, and this and that. And then, it's like, Archie's trying to be like, no, don't do that. She's not like that. She didn't take advantage of me. I followed after her. And then it comes out her true motives. And she's like, and then she tells Betty, it's like, no, I'm doing this to show you what kind of person Archie is. And then Fred's like, wait a minute. So this isn't even about Grundy. This is about my son. Okay, you're starting all this because you're trying to prove how much of a bad person my son is. Because there was that whole scene earlier in the episode with her and her husband, Howard, came over house like, yo, so yeah, Fred, we gotta talk. And then she's like, I think it's best if Archie and Betty aren't friends anymore. It's like, oh, I think it'd work out for both of them, there'd be a bad, that Archie be a bad influence on Betty. And then Fred's like, my son's a good kid. And he's like, no, he's not. The fact is, I see him sneaking out all the time, going to God knows where. And then you have that smart remark from Freddie being like, Alice, are you spying on us? And she's like, okay, you know what? Don't say we didn't warn you type of situation. Now, fast forward back to what I was saying. It sucked, because it's like, dude, it's a situation that Fred's there too, and the situation can be handled. It's like, you don't have to go to the extremes that you're going, because it's like, obviously, like I said, it's not like it's a complicated, like, you get why she's doing it, but but she has the right to do it, but at the same time, she's going about it for the wrong reasons, because her main reason for doing it is because she's going after Archie. And Betty had to step up. It's like, get the hell away from them, Mom. Leave them the hell alone, or I'm going to do this. When you go talk to police about everything, I'm going to say that you're lying, that I made the whole thing up, that basically I'm going a little crazy, because the entire town already thinks we're crazy because of Polly, thinking it kind of runs in the family, that, oh, all those Coopers, they're nuts. And then, like, Alice is like, you wouldn't do that. She's like, yeah, I would, Mom. Just because it's like for her, because her mom is her mom is a bully. She pushes people around, pushes people's buttons. It's like, I get why you're pissed and everything. It's like, I get why you did the whole thing last episode with the whole Blossom family, the whole situation with Jason and the whole autopsy situation. I get it. You're pissed at Jason because of the whole situation with whatever went down between him and Polly. Yes, you're a mother that's angry and you just wanted to kind of pay them back. It's like, you're a rich family that's kind of always got your way. It's almost time someone puts you in your place. Like, obviously she overstepped her line. And like I said, she has the rights in this situation, but it's like she's going about it the wrong way and for the wrong reasons. And even Paul, like later on, Betty had to be like, what's my name, Mom? She's like, Elizabeth. She's like, right, I'm not Polly. You don't need to protect me. And that's what I mean. Like, even under all that meanness and just like very like snappy and just very like almost, because it almost seems like on occasion, it almost seems like she tears down Betty. It's almost like Betty's not good enough, But it's like, but at the same time, where it seems like she almost tears Betty down, it's almost like she puts Betty also on a pedestal too. Like, you have to be this person, this unachievable, perfect person. And it's like, but at the same time, it also seems like she's tearing you down. It's like, oh my God, you hang out with these particular people, it makes you a terrible person or something like that. It's like, because she is treating her like Polly. It's like, I don't care what went down between Polly and Jason. Me and Archie are not Polly and Jason. It's like, so stop treating him that way and stop treating me this way. Like, I'm old enough to make my own decisions without you trying to control my life. That's what causes problems. And you sitting here trying to control my life. Let me be me. Let me take time to breathe, have the friends that I want to have the experiences I want to have, and not have to worry about you breathing down my neck and trying to control every aspect of my life like that. So hopefully, I doubt it, but hopefully this will tame some of the issues with Alice going forward. The situation did not go up in flames the way I thought it easily could have gotten a lot worse, but basically it ended with Grundy having to leave town. There was that moment where we see her leaving and she's got like her glasses kind of pulled down looking at some high school boys. So it's kind of like, because even Betty had to be like, she kind of looked at Grundy like she was evil, but she's like, maybe there is a part of her that legitimately did love Archie. And even I'm guilty of that, because I essentially was like, oh man, she's just manipulating Archie, which is like, from a psychological, an age range point of view, you could be like, well, she's an older woman taking advantage of a person a boy whose brain isn't even fully developed, because your brain doesn't fully develop until you're in your 20s. But then again, it's like, maybe even then, there's the whole situation, there's the legality and there's the moral aspect of it too. Obviously, they're kind of in the wrong on both cases. So, I mean, what breaks your heart even more is the fact is that you see like Betty, like almost like that, her torn up face when they busted in on him like that, because she didn't want things to play out like this. Like she was just writing down her thoughts in her journal and stuff like that, which it wasn't her mom's place to read her journal because that was private like that. But obviously her mom had a right to, after she found the gun in her room, which I don't know why. I guess Betty had her reasons for taking it, because it was like, if she doesn't have this means she can't use it against Archie. Like I said, from the bottom of her heart, she was just trying to protect her, and because it also scared her, because I even thought, I was like, oh man, things between her and Archie aren't gonna be good. But Archie was like, it's like, no, don't apologize. I get it. Like, you were just trying to protect me. You were just trying to help, which she did help, because things could have gotten a lot worse if Betty hadn't stepped in like she did. So. And you had, Fred being there for his son, being like, no, you don't have to worry, Archie. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. It's just, because basically Archie was telling him, he's like, yeah, I'm stupid. I'm a screw up. The fact is, I don't deserve to be Betty's friend. He's like, so you want to punish me, don't take this out against Miss Grundy because you have a problem with me. But the point I was getting back to is like, really quickly, was the fact is, when it came to Grundy, at first I was wondering, I was like, oh, if she stuck around in town, were we going to see a situation where it's like, oh, a possibility of her and Fred getting together, or at least Fred taking an interest in her because of the whole, like, them going to that recital or music session that she was a part of at the beginning of the episode, and even eventually going off to dinner, like kind of having dinner with her at the diner like that. So that's where I was kind of, my mind was said at the beginning of the episode. But now there's no more secrets between him and his dad. Now it's kind of all out in the open like that. Some other things that came up, and it's all kind of tied together, is the whole, we ended up finding out a little bit more about Jughead's situation. Basically there's a special, the drive-in theater. It's like a drive-in theater. Obviously you park those cars. I've never actually had any experiences with those in my life. I don't think no, I don't, not a situation. I don't think I've never been to one. I don't know if there's probably some out there in the world. There's probably some somewheres, but there's probably very few in between. But it's one of the last places. And for Jughead, he holds this place so dearly. Because for one, we ended up finding out like at the end of the episode that that's actually where he's been living because that's the only home he has. Which kind of get into that a little bit later on. Like, the question is, why is that? But I'm guessing it ties in with the fact. Well, I'll kind of go to it. It's the fact is that his dad used to work for Archie's dad, but got fired because basically he was stealing or taking materials from somewhere else. He was not doing. And it was a situation where because the person working on the construction for this was Fred and his company. They were doing the construction to tear down the drive-in and build something else in its place. But the point is, we ended up finding out that there's a biker gang in this town called the South Side Serpents. And apparently it seems like his dad is a part of that. Now, it seems like Jughead isn't on good terms with his dad because his dad's asking him, like, so where are you going to be staying? He's like, I'll figure it out, Dad, and just walks away. So obviously, like, he had his problem. Like, to him, it's kind of like, I guess he has a problem with Archie's dad mainly because it's like, if your dad hadn't fired my dad, like, obviously my dad's not the best and what's the wording? He's not a proper citizen, like a proper, good, clean citizen in the sense of he doesn't do very illegal things. And obviously it seems like he's part of a biker gang. But, it seemed like he has his problems with his dad, but it's a situation where it's like, I'm guessing his dad getting fired was kind of the beginning of a lot of stuff. Because we do know that he has a little sister, because he referenced her before. We even saw a picture of her. So it's like, hopefully we get a little more information about Jughead's family situation. But whatever, I guess his parents got divorced. And I guess Jughead's on his own or something. Maybe his little sister's with his mom, wherever they are. Maybe Jughead got stuck with his dad and his mom is off somewhere else with his little sister. Just like Archie and his dad, Archie's dad and his mom are divorced, so she's somewhere else. Now, why I was bringing this up, obviously, because like I said, because that was just already interesting in itself, but tying it all together, basically Jughead ended up finding out from the mayor that there's someone anonymously buying the drive-in to kind of tear it down and build something else. Now, Jughead tried to talk to the mayor. It's like it's such an important place to him. Talk about his experience with even his memories of being there. But like I said, more so than anything, it's the memories plus it's the place he lives. So he has to find somewhere else to live. Now, I feel like out of any what will most likely happen is he'll obviously start living with Archie. I mean, at least that's how I assume. I do appreciate like he kind of sprays on it like, hey, this is Jughead Jones was here, and then kind of draws a crown. Because that was kind of, like I said, I'm not that familiar with Archie. It's been a while since I even looked at an Archie comic, even knowing what the characters even really look like in a comic book form or a cartoon form, which obviously the cartoon form reflects the comic book form, I'm sure, in some iterations of it. I'm sure there's other iterations of it where they look similar to their comic book counterparts, but different. But nevertheless, like the whole crown situation, that's kind of a Jughead special. Is like he always wore that crown, didn't he? Like I said, I could be completely wrong about it. But nevertheless, the mayor was like, oh no, this is good for the town. But it's like, no, what it's good for is her own re-election because the money she's getting from that is coming from Hermione, which I just thought that was kind of weird. I didn't know that was her name. I thought just, oh no, just kind of interesting. Because prior to Harry Potter, I'd never heard that name before. So I was like, so your name is actually Hermione? Like, and I don't know if I'm just probably like saying it weird, but it was just kind of interesting to me. But Veronica's mom is the one who bought that. Obviously, I figured out of anyone, she'd be the only one. I doubt I don't know. It didn't seem like the Blossom style because it's like, it seems like if they're going to do something like that, they'd make a spectacle out of it. At least that's what they make people, that's what it seems like the Blossoms are like. But I was like, she's the only one we know of that has like a lot of cash on hand. And even Veronica started asking questions about this. Because this whole deal is something that she's like, oh yeah, don't even let the Blossoms in on that this whole situation is happening, that even I'm behind it. Veronica, because, Cheryl kind of started all this because, Cheryl's kind of running her mouth. It's like, oh man, her mom is working as a waitress and blah, 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 blah. Kind of being, still mean girl. She takes a picture of Veronica's mom, and it's like, oh, your mom was meeting with some shady dude, Southside Serpent, like I said, biker gang. Obviously, Veronica didn't know that at the time. Which the later, even though she was doing all that trash talking, she ends up sitting with Veronica and Kevin when they go to when they're in that drive-in, for the last drive-in. Um, and she's kind of cozying up and watching the movie, which is kind of like you talk so much trash and you push people away, but even like you're not going to make friends that way. Like you're actually doing the exact opposite. It's just like there was even a sad moment where she's like, "Oh, Jason would have loved this movie" or something like that, and you almost see Kevin and Veronica be like, "Oh my God, like, are you really bringing up such a downer subject? It's supposed to be a good time sitting here watching a movie, and you just come here and have such a downer subject. You're bringing up your brother, like, oh yeah, it sucks your brother's dead and everything, but it's like, why'd you come here and just bring us down?" But nevertheless, it's like she stuck around, so it's like you talk all that trash, but you spend time around Veronica. It's like because ultimately she's one of the few people that actually talks to you because Veronica's not afraid to be open and be like call Cheryl out on her BS. And because it seems like the only person she was ever probably nice to, at least to our knowledge, is her brother. Because even the girls that she hangs out with, even them, she kind of treats them like trash sometimes. I mean, at the very least it seems like it. But nevertheless, it turns out, Veronica's mom is like, Harmonia is like, okay, so this is the truth. Basically, I'm working with the serpents because basically your dad had a deal. Basically, the serpents are supposed to hang around. The reason why they've been hanging around and kind of causing a ruckus at the drive-in and stuff like that is because they were hired by her dad to make all that ruckus to kind of lower the value of the place so that he can swoop in and buy it up. And it's like he's doing all of this from jail. Obviously, there's problems here because obviously it probably wasn't enough money because it seems like one of the dudes from the Serpents wasn't happy with how much he was getting paid. Because what made it worse for Veronica is her mom lied and pretended like it was nothing at first, but now she knows there's a lot more to it. And now she's like, because Veronica is sinking in. It's like, holy crap, dad is actually a criminal, but Harmonia's like being like, no, it's not like that. Your dad is a businessman, kind of justifying it. It's like, the fact of the matter is you liked where we lived. You liked the things that we did. You liked the fancy restaurants we went to. Well, we only got that way because of what your dad does. So it's like, you understand, kind of like, don't bite the hand that feeds you type of situation. And you almost see Veronica being like, because, it's a situation where she probably never thought once where the money came from, what they did. But now it's like, I'm sure things are in a different perspective from her because now she realizes there's a kind of a criminal element behind what her dad does. So it kind of adds a criminal element to all the things that she's ever bought or the things associated with his money. Especially because this is probably her first time she's ever really made actual friends. It's here in Riverdale because obviously she didn't like who she was back home because like she was, as she brought up very early at the beginning of the series, it's like she was very much like Cheryl. In fact, she was worse than Cheryl. So she probably never really had maybe she had real friends, but they were probably people that had the same personality, kind of like kind of like, you're kind of a mean personality. Or maybe it's just people that were around her because of like, because of her social status type of thing. So it's like her position and wealth were why people hung around her. Like they weren't like real friends. So it's definitely going to be interesting going forward to see where she all stands. There's a whole situation of her and Fred kind of getting close because apparently they kind of had a thing in the past. Obviously, they keep kind of alluding to. She went to the movies with him because it would look a lot less suspicious. So I don't know whether she's doing that because there is a part of her that's like, trying to make things work on that angle. Or is she still going to, like, obviously she's doing work for her husband. So it's like, part of me wonders, is it like she's doing the whole like pretending to be like down on her luck, like I'll work as a waitress and stuff like that until I can get back, once her husband does what he needs to do, gets their equity back up and stuff like that. Probably for her, all of this is to serve the purpose of them kind of running the town. I think she wants their family to take the Blossom family's place. Like she wants to kind of be the one to kind of run Riverdale, or at the very least run Riverdale long enough until they can get all the money they need to go forward with maybe moving back and kind of settling this whole situation. Probably, I mean, there's probably going to be even more legal things going forward, trying to clear his name, maybe making evidence disappear, maybe even going as far as making some witnesses disappear, because things are going to definitely get complicated on a serpent level, because Kevin started making out with one of its members, because the guy's like, wait a minute, you're basically like, your dad's the sheriff, and he's like, and he looks down at his arm. The dude's Joaquin looks at his arm and it's like, oh, he has a serpent tattoo. He's like, is this going to be a problem? He's like, yeah, it's not going to be a problem if you don't say anything and I won't say anything. Because at first I was like, oh man, he's getting roughed up. Oh man, he's hurting Kevin. And it's like, nope, they're just doing some vigorous making out. It's like, just get a room, you two. I don't appreciate the fact is that his dad's so open about it. He's like, he's like going like, oh, I'm going to the movies for Veronica. He's like, can't you find some other gay, someone else gay to kind of go with you? Because it's almost like he's like, son, go out there and date someone already. I don't want you being single. He's like, Dad, I'm like the only gay person at the school. Essentially, this is how the conversation went, which is kind of like, and it's such a casual conversation with his dad. So I appreciate the fact is that his dad's like very open. It's like, I know who my son is and I accept him and love him for it. I want my son to be happy. But there was kind of a reminiscent. It very reminiscently reminded me of Teen Wolf. That basically the sheriff has like a whole murder board, very reminiscent of Styles from Teen Wolf. Kind of has his board where he works everything out. But at the end of the episode, he ends up coming back. His place is trashed. Probably some evidence is missing. You even have like the pictures on his murder board taken down. So whether it was the serpents or whether it was the killer, obviously, they didn't like the fact is that he was looking into this. Like I said, town full of secrets, especially with the mayor, because you would think, oh, the mayor is. I mean, I don't know why you would assume that the mayor is good, because it's like in any situation, the mayor is always shady, and it's like, I love you, Robin Givens, but it seems like you're shady in this, because she's accepting all that money from Veronica's mom as a means of paying for her reelection, and obviously keeping her mouth shut about this kind of shady deal, because she's the one that kind of greased the wheels to push this deal along. She didn't do it for the sake of Riverdale. It's like, oh, this is for the future of Riverdale. It's like what she was telling Jughead. It's more so like, hey, I need money to make sure that I can get reelected, keep me in office. So I don't know. Overall, a very good episode. Like I said, some nice conclusions to certain stories, because I would assume this would be the end of Grundy's story, but maybe you might not know. But it wasn't anything necessarily, I mean, to our knowledge, it wasn't anything necessarily pushing forward with the whole Jason murder situation, but more so, obviously, the developing stories and secrets that are coming out around people around town. So, very interested to find out what goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.